Try to get a 95 over the middle. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. Oh, my God. Bro, I was doing good before y'all came over here. I swear I was. Why are you picking it a little bit? Hey, you signing this over there? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Welcome to the crew. Whole
Appreciate it, bro.
It's going to be the best weather you get for a while, so take it all in.
Let's get it. All right, Chris. Put a little heat behind it. Woo! Let's go! How do you know I can hit that? That's you, baby. I got something for you. There you go, baby. Appreciate you, bro.
You know that those guys have thrown a baseball before. Anytime you see the first pitch from the mound, and it's straight and true, because when you're on the mound, it's very different. That's why a lot of times you see the first pitch as they stand in front of the mound. When you're on the mound, you're throwing downhill. It's more pressure. It's farther, and that's why we see the occasional goes this way, goes that way, or whatever the case may be. But Russell Wilson played baseball, and there used to be some chatter he was going to play baseball. That was part of his leverage to get his contracts. Now the leverage was, I don't want to be traded, but if I were to be traded, these are the 4 teams I would take a trade to. That ended up being much more effective to get him what he wanted than threatening to play baseball. All right, so Myles, any thoughts on the whole first pitch? I don't know how big of a baseball fan you are. The whole ceremonial first pitch thing, anything? Do you aspire to throw one out at an Guardians game?
Ooh, put one in the tip jar there. No, I don't, because I don't really. Baseball is my first love, but football is my true love. That's what I always say. I remember when I was like 9 or 10 or something, my mom got me a Cleveland gray jersey for my birthday. And I remember standing in our kitchen and like imitating Manny Ramirez's batting stance. I used to do that as a kid. You're playing wiffle ball. You always imitate the guys. It's fun. But I mean, baseball, there's only so much like sports I can handle in my brain, because obviously that's what we do for a living. So like right now I'm about to flip the page to the NBA because the playoffs are about to start. So I've been watching like the last day or two of baseball, but once the playoffs start, baseball is going to go away until after the finals for me.
I've gone through that similar experience. I was a very big baseball fan through 1992 when the Pirates lost to the Atlanta Braves, who for some reason have not changed their name. I don't understand. I understand why the Washington football team had to change its name. That was a dictionary. Got to be careful how you,
so what now?
How you enunciate that word. A dictionary-defined slur. But Indians, Chiefs, Braves, that's a tougher bridge for me to cross. And, hey, they could change their name if they want to, but it was easier to get behind the idea that the slur needed to go. Anyway, when the Braves beat the Pirates, 1992, Game 7, Sid Bream somehow scores from second base on a fairly routine signal. Barry Bonds can't throw him out at the plate. That's when I began to detach from baseball because, number one, I knew the Pirates were going to stink, and then I got sucked into this business within a decade after that. And once you are all in covering a sport, it is so hard to really be into, for me, any other sport. I'm so focused on football. When I'm not working or watching games or talking about it, writing about it, I want to do something completely different than sports.
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
I can't fill up the rest of my free time with sports. Anyway, enough. At least we got more in common than you realize. You like to try to find ways that we're different. I like to try to find ways that we're alike. We're definitely different when it comes to Back to the Future and movies from the 80s, but we actually have a lot in common. We've never had a chance to really sit down, have a drink, smoke a cigar. We were going to do it in L.A., but somebody got COVID, and it wasn't me.
I did.
But,
thank you. That's a violation of HIPAA.
Is that a HIPAA violation? I didn't say it was you. I didn't say it was you.
Yeah,
I said somebody got it and it wasn't me.
In the context of that, Mr. Lawyer, there's something that we can prove there.
Oops. All right. Moving right along. What's the next big trade you would like to see in the NFL? Go ahead.
Well, speaking of DK Metcalf and Russell Wilson, I mean, I just want to see Baker Mayfield get traded to the Seahawks, right? I think that this is where we all kind of feel like it's going. And I just want it to happen in part so that we can talk about that instead of the draft for the next 20 days, because I know I said I was going to be more enthusiastic about the draft, but I'm not yet. So I love all the quarterback movement. The quarterback movement's fun to me. I think it wouldn't take that much. At this point, probably like a 5, and Cleveland's going to have to pay a substantial amount of Baker Mayfield's salary for 2022 in order to get this done. But I just want to see it happen because Baker Mayfield needs to get out of Cleveland. Cleveland needs Baker Mayfield to get out of there, and Seattle needs a quarterback who's not Drew Lock to compete for that starting role going into 2022.
You know, there was supposed to be a podcast that dropped this week with Baker Mayfield. I haven't seen any evidence of it yet. I guess I should go look for it. Somebody's mentioned the other day that there was a podcast coming this week. It would be the first comments from Baker Mayfield since his farewell to Cleveland social media post. But yeah. Look, I think for now the Browns are trying to slow play this. They have no urgency to move on from Baker Mayfield from a cap standpoint. The money's guaranteed. They can wait until after the draft. They can wait for somebody to get injured. I just wonder if Baker Mayfield's going to play along. When the offseason program gets up and running, is he going to show up and demand to be part of it? I know he's still got to rehab his shoulder, but he could make things awkward if he decides to show up and say, I'm here, deal with me. They may not want to. They're trying to turn the page to Deshaun Watson. There's only so many distractions they're going to want to deal with. All right, I'm going to propose Jimmy Garoppolo to the Houston Texans. And the terms would be, I don't think the NFL teams use this enough. I would do conditional terms based upon factors that would include how many games he plays and whether or not the Texans sign him to an extension. And it would be 2023 draft picks, not 2022. So you get the $25 million off the books, and let's say it's a 4th-round pick, and it goes to a 3rd-round pick if they sign him to a new contract, and it goes to a 2nd-round pick if they sign him to a new contract, and he starts at least 14 games or something like that. That's how I would do it. I think that's a fair outcome. Even then, I'm not sure the Texans would be interested. Maybe the 49ers have to pay some of that money in order to get the draft pick compensation. That's where this becomes complicated. I think both teams, even though Garoppolo's, Myles, isn't guaranteed, if they want to move these contracts, they may need to have some flexibility to pay some of the money in order to get the draft pick compensation back. Kind of like the Brock Osweiler trade, but not as extreme. And we've seen it with Ryan Tannehill. We saw it with Teddy Bridgewater last year. You may have to pay some of the money in order to get a draft pick in return for the player's contract.
Yeah, but I mean, you need to do it. I mean, I think that the Niners are much better off just from an organizational standpoint if they get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo at some point just before training camp, let's call it. Because you don't want to go in with a quarterback controversy potentially between Trey Lance and Jimmy G. I just think you want to nip that in the bud before it can even get started.
I agree. All right, who else would you like to see traded before the season?
All right, let's go with DK Metcalf. I don't want to send him to the Jets like everybody else is saying. Let's send him to the Ravens. Let's improve the Ravens wide receiving core with somebody like a DK Metcalf because they got Hollywood Brown, they've got Bateman, and they got Watkins and all that. But I think if you have a really dynamic pass catcher like DK Metcalf, that changes the dynamic of the offense. I mean, I think we've seen it where Lamar Jackson can make plays. He can make throws. We know this. He's an MVP. He's a vast MVP. But I think that Metcalf would give them a dimension on offense that they have not necessarily had. And when you're talking about the AFC and how good that division, especially we're expecting it to be now with, Joe Burrow there and their wide receiving core. And also you have Cleveland now with Deshaun Watson and however long he's going to play, whatever it is. But I just think the Ravens could really use an improvement with DK Metcalf, and that would be really interesting to me.
Well, when you look at how Eric DeCosta said this week, they value their draft picks, they want to keep their draft picks and use their draft picks, and when you consider the nature of their offense, that would be a tough sell. I'd rather see DK Metcalf go to the Jets. So since you sent him to Baltimore, I'll send him to the Jets for the 10th overall pick and maybe a couple of 4th rounders. The Chiefs got 5 total picks from the Dolphins, but the first-round pick they got was so much lower than 10th overall. Now, I know it's got to be hard for the Seahawks to say we're just taking back the first-round pick that we gave you in the Jamal Adams trade, but at least they get it back. They get some other stuff. I think the Seahawks need to move on from Metcalf, and I think the Jets would be more attractive to Metcalf. He'll be a superstar in that market, and Zach Wilson, if he develops the way that some think that he will, that could be a guy that gets the football to Metcalf a lot more than he got it even.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.